screen with us. So I will give them a quick minute to introduce themselves, and then we'll have a presentation, a keynote presentation from Giuseppe Sparkle, and then we're just going to step into again my little soggiorno, and we're going to discuss whatever in the most interactive possible way. So I urge you, not requesting, I'm urging you to join us in the discussion. So if you have anything to add, comment, questions, whatever, raise your hands and we'll make sure that you've been heard, and we're going to try to answer your questions as much as possible. So again, having said that, I'll give a quick round, and I'll start with Ahmed. Ahmed, welcome. Could you please unmute yourself and make a quick introduction? Grazie.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Name's Ahmed Musa. I am with Awasser in Oman, looking after our wholesale and carrier business.
Okay, thank you so much. And you know, we'll be in 2 months. We'll be in the beautiful city of Muscat. You know,
I'm definitely waiting to see you guys there, inshallah, and welcome you.
Okay, inshallah. Thank you, Giuseppe.
Just the introduction. Okay, Giuseppe Valentino, I'm head of product management for backbone and infrastructure solutions in Sparkle. And good morning to everybody.
Welcome. Thank you. Maurizio.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Maurizio Goretti. I'm the general manager of the Rome Internet Exchange Point that is present in Rome. We've been here for some years, since 1995, and that's it.
It's like yesterday, right? 1995.
Yeah. Same old stuff. That's it.
For me, I mean, you know, it's not funny. That was not funny. Welcome to you as well, Maurizio. Last but not least, Franco.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Franco Busso. I'm the Vice President Sales for Southern Europe in Infinera. Infinera is one of the worldwide leader in optical equipment, and we are pleased, let's say, to have some of our customers here around.
Okay, thank you so much, and again, gentlemen, and Ahmed, welcome to the stage here. So, if I may invite kindly Giuseppe to the cathedral to do his keynote presentation, and what are you going to talk about to us, Giuseppe?
Okay, yes, works. Clicker. So welcome again to Rome. Cloudy Rome today. I think it was a bit better yesterday. So I picked up today a couple of topics of the various ones that Eric was suggesting for our panel discussion. As he gave me 10 minutes, so I'll try to use them in the best possible way. These two topics are what we really consider, I think, industrially wise, the paradigm shift in the business model related to submarine cables. And then I will, let me say, highlight how we see Italy placed in this digital infrastructure development and transformation ongoing. It's a bit articulated slide, but it concentrates what we see as, again, the legacy model, which is the model that has been used, I would say, in the last few decades, typically from consortia cables. And there is a new model that I simply identify as open cable system and open access system. The change, the trend, the evolution between these two models are linked to both, I would say, market forces for a different and more, I would say, modern, evolved, competitive and commercial landscape, as well as technology. Without some technological evolution, we would not be in the position to see this change. So let's start seeing what is, I would say, the past. For sure in Europe, this is the past, not in all geographies. There are geographies in the world where probably this is still the present, but for sure that will not be the future. So in the past, first of all, the submarine cable systems were capable to hold, to contain a limited number of fibers. 2, 3, 4, this was the typical number of fiber pairs on a submarine cable system, long distance, international, intercontinental cable system. These fibers were shared between the consortium members. Often these consortia were built out by tens of different carriers. So also very complex, let me say, ecosystem, okay, to work through. And these members would then have dedicated capacity and would need to agree on criteria how to upgrade, invest, and make the capacity available to each of them based on the investment and a number of other very complex rules. This was the model for this type of, let me say, consortium cable. In terms of landing, in each country, there were typically one, some exceptional case, maybe two, but one typically landing party, typically a member of the consortium, who would own the submarine, the wet piece in the domestic water for regulatory reason, because you need to hold the license to land the cable, and would run a cable landing station. Cable landing station would have the termination of the fiber pairs with the what we call SLT, so submarine line terminal equipment, so the equipment who leads the fiber, together with the electrical plant, because submarine cables, medium long distance submarine cable require repeaters, and the repeaters needs to be fed with high voltage electrical plant. We're talking about 8, 10, 12 kilovolt. Normally, the landing party would be the exclusive provider of the backhaul to allow what? A key element of the connectivity on a submarine cable is the interconnection. So, of course, the submarine cable becomes live and productive when it is interconnected with other networks, okay? So the interconnection, which I just identify here with an X, were happening mainly in other data centers, sometimes even in the same cable landing station, but this is a simplified view. Last but not least, typically in the last decades, there was a sort of vendor lock between the wet plant, so the submarine cable, and the equipment to lead the fiber. Let's see what we're seeing today. First of all, the technology has evolved. We have today more and more cable announced with typically 16, 20, even starting 24 fiber pairs, possibly growing up, with a significant, typically, amount of throughput of capacity per each fiber pair. This has been allowed by the SDM technology, space division multiplexing, without entering into the details, but this was a required technological architectural evolution to change also the business model. So here, of course, the number of fibers increased, the demand of connectivity increased by each players, and typically in this new approach, each investor has one or multiple fiber pairs. And on these fiber pairs, he can decide his own strategy in terms of technology deployment, upgrade planning, and so on. So this changed a lot the way the submarine cable are actually, let me say, used by the owners, the holders of rights of usage on the cable. As you see here, typically now in the LND stage, so the other important, let me say, change is that the CLS more and more is an interconnection point. So it's not anymore a closed environment, typically technically and let me say limited capabilities, but is a place where there is the possibility first to interconnect between different players, because these CLS, when they are open and neutrally managed, they allow terrestrial networks to enter, which you see depicted here in color, typically multiple. One of these can be the landing party itself, so the owner of the CLS, but you have a number of them. So there is interconnection in the CLS, and of course, there is the need to extend then the capacity of the cable throughout the ecosystem of the city where the cable lands, or the country where the cable lands, and so on. Of course, these change a lot, even the competitive picture. Clearly, one of the limits of that model was the lack of competition for what we call the backhaul, so the connection between the cable landing station and the data centers, which in this model is superseded by the fact that there is competition already at the landing spot. Where this is not happening, open cable models extend natively the fiber termination into one open neutral data center and retain the CLS only the electrical equipment, the PFE, power feed equipment. Last point, which of course is the reverse of the other, in this model, also on the technology standpoint, is possible to disaggregate the equipment selection from the wet plant selection, which gives, again, each tenant, so each owner or a right holder of a single fiber pair, to have its own policy in terms of technology applied and usage of the capacity on that fiber. At Sparkle, we have embraced this model. We have embraced this model already a few years ago, I would say, several years ago, because, for example, in Palermo, we developed Sicily Hub with this model in mind when landing CC-Webinar.Live, which was started in 2016. So already a few years ago, I would say. And for sure, we are implementing this model in BlueMed, which is depicted here, which is the cable we are actually deploying as we speak. This is part, what you see here is BlueMed, so is the Mediterranean deployment of a cable system, which is actually part of a much larger cable system that we are building with Google and Omantel, which is called Blue and Raman Cable System, which extends up to India, going through the Arabic Peninsula, the Red Sea, further on touching Oman and getting to Mumbai. First of all, this cable has been designed mainly, with several drivers, of course, scalability to add additional capacity connecting all these countries to Europe and vice versa. But the diversification has been a key driver. So I highlight just three elements. One is this cable sets a different corridor from the corridor which is usually and normally today used by all the submarine cables connecting Asia to Europe, which goes to Israel, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. You may have heard at G20 a couple of weeks ago, it was announced a corridor going from India to Europe following a very similar path. So I think we have been also in this somehow pioneer. That's the first element. Second one, another, let me say, bottleneck is the Sicily Channel, where all the cables pass through, traversing the Mediterranean, going to mainland Europe. So we decided to take the Messina Straits. Last point, the main landing spot in Europe mainland is Genova. From Genoa, we connect Milan and Marseille. So also Genova, and this is not only the choice of Blue Raman and BlueMed, but also to Africa, and a number of other cables are. I've identified Genova as an alternative spot to Marseille, which is still a very relevant hubbing element. In fact, we are extending the connectivity there. Going back to the landing components, we have developed a Sparkle. New are Genova, Lagaccio, Burla in Tel Aviv. Existing are Palermo, which are just expanded, and Chania in Crete, with the logic of open access and neutrally managed data center interconnection ecosystem. In Marseille and Milan, we are using, or in Rome, we are using third parties for this landing of the fibers of the cable. Second topic, what is the role of Italy in the submarine cable infrastructure development? I will use this chart, which I think is very indicative. It speaks by itself from Oracle. You see the grade of blue shows the more blue it is the country, the higher is the risk of internet disconnection. This risk is strictly related to the scarcity or the let me say, the absence, let's say in general, the scarcity of redundancy of fiber backbone, because communication are typically internet, IP, and digital communication are typically global and cross-border. So these countries have a lack of backbones, in premise, starting from submarine. Okay, most of these countries are facing the sea, and so submarine is the best way to connect them to the world and to the internet. Let's look at the geography. You see the concentration of this issue of the risk of internet disconnection is in the area that we call in Italy enlarged Mediterranean, Mediterraneo allargato. So let's talk about the Mediterranean. These are the operational systems. You see the bottleneck that I mentioned before, that, for example, Blue Raman and BlueMed are addressing in terms of diversification. And this is what is under development. These are slides from telegeography. You can see immediately the lines. You can see the lines in the Tyrrhenium. So several cables are planned or are under construction as BlueMed, as to Africa at the moment. BlueMed, by the way, I forgot to tell you that is operational in the Tyrrhenium. We completed the laying a few months ago and we switched on a few weeks ago. And the rest of Mediterranean will be completed in the next few months. So the Med is, again, it has been historically a media for goods, for spices, for, you know, and we are somehow regaining this because, again, of the lack, the development of the African continent, the Middle Eastern areas, and so on, require additional investment in this cable, in this type of infrastructure, specifically submarine cable system. So the Mediterranean is what we call, again, il Medio Oceano, the ocean in the middle between the big oceans, the Atlantic and the Indian, and then the Pacific one. And so it is the media to connect the north and the south, the east and the west of the world. Europe is clearly today the largest hub environment for internet. This is, if we take, for example, the internet exchanges, the largest one, the largest, let me say, weight of traffic exchange are in Europe. There are geopolitical reasons why also Europe is the natural hubbing point of the world. Building cable between some Asian countries and US is more and more difficult or impossible. This makes even more Europe relevant for this interconnection need. Italy, for its geographical position, but also thanks to its industrial capabilities of the players who are playing their role in the country, has, of course, a huge opportunity here, together with some other countries who are, of course, facing the Mediterranean, to, let me say, play a relevant word within the continent for the development and the landing and the interconnections of the growing of the traffic and the ecosystem around the internet development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see if there's any questions from the audience. Yes, Nevin, please, and Christian. Okay. Let's see if we can get you something. No, just raise your question if possible. See, it's coming. Okay, grazie. Grazie, Franco.
It's a question for Giuseppe. It's about the Blue Raman cable. It's a very innovative and a very, I think the whole industry is hopeful that this thing is going to go through, because it's an alternative route through the, to the one that goes through the Suez Canal, right? It goes through Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, right? However, I think there is a certain political risk there, because the Saudi Arabia and Israel are not very traditional allies, to say the least. Do you have any document that has the signatures of Saudi Arabians and Israelis in one document? Just out of curiosity.
Great question, Nevin. Thank you. Really, I hope this is filmed and broadcasted.
Hold on, I will call Meloni right away.
No, I will try to address the question. Let me say, we don't need a document which has the sign of the two countries to do something like this, okay? So, there are geopolitical changes going on. You may have heard about the Abraham Accords, which has changed significantly the relationship within a number of Gulf countries and Israel. Today, I think there are something like at least 10 flights between Tel Aviv and Dubai per day, or even more, something amazing, okay? And the Abraham Accords are like 2 years old, okay? So things are changing there. It's not only newspaper news. It's not only, let me say, rumors, okay? Things are changing. Let me say we have been lucky. You need always some luck. And enough, let me say, brave to take that stance already 3 years ago. We think that things are going in the right direction, and we are building the cable as we speak. So we don't see roadblocks, okay? And we are targeting to complete the end-to-end system connecting Genoa to Mumbai at the end of 24.
And let's not forget, it's also in their interests. You see? Most of the time. Okay. Kri, you had a question, right?
Thank you. Ciao Giuseppe, Cristiano Zanfoni speaking, Milan Internet Exchange. I have a comment on the first slide. So you described the change between the old way of delivering and managing the subsea cable and the new one. So you described perfectly, and I fully agree with the picture, the market, and the technology. To my belief, there's another point that probably changed between the old way and the new way, and it is about the industry of the member parties that built up the cable 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and from 10 years ago from now. So since at that time there were just carriers, now there is a significant part, at least of the investment, brought by the OTT, so the social network, the search engine, the artificial intelligence operator. So they are thinking, I think that they request a more open environment on the dry part of the subsea cable. So do you agree to add also this changing into this analysis between the old and the new part? So the OTT are requesting a more open environment rather than in the past the carriers were used to ask. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very good point. I didn't mention that, also trying to be quick, but for sure, this is also a major market force that has impacted, let me say, the market trends and dynamics. I think all of you heard hundreds of times that the largest single investors today in submarine cables are at least two OTTs companies, Google and Meta. And of course, Google and Meta have this requirement when they co-build or they lead or they participate to any investment in a submarine cable. So I think you are right. This has been for sure one of the very strong market influencing forces. And again, the technology has helped, and I think also there is a natural evolution in the industry itself. But for sure, OTTs are playing a big role, without mentioning the fact that this has changed also for network operators and submarine investors and builders like Sparkle and a number of others, the market landscape, because what used to be a pure customer 20 years ago, 15 years ago, is today maybe a partner, sometimes a competitor, because they built fiber in excess and then they swap. So they put those assets in the market, creating a natural, let me say, additional competitive edge. But this is the market. So you have to live in the market and coping with the trends and the evolution of the market.
Okay, thank you.
It's also sometimes a little bit follow the money. It's also because, you know, I mean, they do have endless pockets, and it's not always easy to catch up with that. So if there is a compromise, and I mean, also on the software side, if you look at open source, or you know, things can improve and have a better thing. So Franco, let me go to you. It's a switcheroo, you know, it's like Formula One, like in this weekend, you know, you do the switcheroo of the microphones. Italy, as I mean, we just heard that the importance of Italy being, you know, and the strategic importance of Italy is becoming more and more a strategic important hub. What is your take on it? What can you share with the audience? What we should look at, what is important and why it is so important?
Well, I have to say that looking to the last slide that Valentino presented, Italy has been always a crucial hub for the landing of all the major consortia cable that were coming from Asia. But the landing was in Sicily. And we always, I think one of the problems that we had, so Sicily has been a hub for CMV3, CMV5, a lot of different kind of consortia cable. What is significantly changing is that now Italy is opening a new, let's say, shortening the connection between the traditional hub, which were in the south, to the Central European peers data center, which are Frankfurt, Amsterdam, London, and also Paris. One problem that we see as let's say, we are supplying optical equipment, and I think that we are definitely one of the leader in terms of technology leader for SLTs, which are the elements that are sitting in a landing station. Globally, in Europe, Marseille is overcrowded. All the major cable, Marseille was the route to Central Europe. This is definitely changes because Marseille is overcrowded, and because of there is a need, as Valentino correctly mentioned, to diversify the routes. to the main hubs. And we see at the moment a lot of growing new cables, a lot of different new cables, which are especially trying to moving out of Marseille, also in Europe, in order to manage and to identify new routes. Exactly, I was saying before. So Italy, I think that the core role of Italy now with the opening of Genova as a landing station is another step, this kind of direction. Italy is natural, and we see that, and it's on geographic map. It's a natural hub for the center. It's in the center of the Mediterranean. It's closer to the African coast, to the Egyptian coast. So it has a natural geographical importance. I think that the investment that Sparkle is promoted, and after Sparkle, there are other suppliers which are building or planning to build cables that have hub in the Genova in Genova. Is a confirmation that this kind of strategy is going to pay back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Maurizio, from your point of view, what makes Italy or Genoa or even other places in Italy so strategically important?
I think that for us, Internet Exchange Point, there are lots of good news. We are based on an open system, neutral one. We are, we try to treat, we have to be neutral because we have all kind of internet service provider connected to our system. And having a system, the new kind of system that Valentino described is a very good news for us. That although I think to have a new good opportunity to grow as an interconnection system. Italy has a good position in the center of the Mediterranean. I don't know, our name NAMEX is an acronym that means Mediterranean Exchange Point. At that time, people believed that Italy can have a rule, and in the center of the Mediterranean, things were a little bit earlier at that time. But now I think we have this opportunity. For example, we are present Rome. I think the new cable will benefit mainly Milan, that is the most important city of Italy in this moment.
Cristiano, are you happy? Okay.
Yeah, but also the other city in Italy can have as Rome, for example, a new big opportunity to grow. The first cable that is arriving has arrived in Rome. The blue one will give opportunity to receive traffic from for example, the big OTTs more than today. The investment of the data center company that they are doing in Rome, it's another important point because this kind of guys needs megawatts, lots of spaces. So you need a city that is ready for that. The other cable operator also are doing very interesting things for Italy. It's not only Africa to Europe, it's also east to west of the Mediterranean. New cable that now are available that connect Italy to the Balkans, create a fast route to the east. New cables that connect the east of the Mediterranean to the west. I think it will give other opportunities. So I think that we need to, be able to take this opportunity to let Italy to be the hub of the Mediterranean, and so I think that future, I think, is bright.
Well, I think it was and always has been only inevitable, right? I mean, Italy to have the central hub in the Med, not only geographically, but also from also the resilience, latencies, everything which is there. Marseille is overcrowded. We know this. I mean, that's why I'm happy to see that Genoa but also, for instance, Lisbon, they are growing and they're moving, and it's not only Marseille anymore or Palermo. So diversity always brings far more business. I think it is the right answer to the huge demand which is there. I mean, yesterday we talked about it, the huge demand which is there. So I think it's a good thing. Ahmed, if you want to join us, Giuseppe just mentioned as well that you know, the BlueMed is only part of a bigger cable, you know, as well with Omantello, Zoe, how I should call it now. I mean, you're in the region. I mean, how do you see any differences, you know, from, let's say, the Mediterranean area, or the approach, or the business model paradigm change, which we talked about earlier? Or do you see a lot of similarities? And how do you work together? I mean, you know, in your region and let's say the Mediterranean region. What can you tell us, please?
Okay, so there's a lot of similarities that we see, but then there's also a lot of bits where I believe the Middle East region is lagging a few years behind, right? So for example, the openness of all these new cable systems and the push for everyone to have open access and very transparent cross-connect feeds and a landing station that isn't kind of monopolized, that is still a little bit foreign here in the region, right? But inevitably, it's going to come, just like all the other regions have become oversaturated, for example, or if they didn't adopt to the market needs, things have shifted away. So I do believe the key to this, and what the regional players really need to do, is to embrace the change rather than trying to fight it.
And how is this possible? Because I think I know a little bit the Middle East region, but it's very concentrated on, let's say, the incumbents, if I may say so. And
Yes.
Once you have the power, why should I give it away, right? Or is it that a key driver might be that also, as well, the OTTs are coming in, and they're coming in fast, and with their demands, they would need to change. Is that correct, or do you see any other key drivers?
No, I think those are the biggest and most powerful drivers. But everyone who thought that they were an incumbent and thought that they were untouchable, sooner or later has had to adopt to this, right? I'm gonna pick on Egypt for a little while because my father's Egyptian, so I'm allowed to do that. But Egypt thought that they had the golden route. You know, they had the Suez Canal. They wouldn't negotiate. They wouldn't really give many concessions at all. And then now look at what's happening. Everyone wants an alternative route. So it's the way the market will shape everything, whether you like it or not.
And is that why Aqaba is becoming, you know, more and more important?
100%.
Be the alternative route. I mean, it's not only wet; it's also, I mean, a couple of thousand kilometers are dry. But, and I understand the question from Nevin actually. But will Aqaba be, let's say, or become a more important hub? What do you say?
I believe whoever is the most flexible, the most agile, and the easiest to deal with will become the next hub.
Okay. We talked about, thank you. We talked about hyperscalers, and maybe Giuseppe, you can come in. Do I sense that? I mean, you talked about it, and we know that they are one of the key drivers to have an open access, and they are part of one of the key drivers for let's say promoting that. Do you see actually more partnerships coming, or do you expect that more partnership between the hyperscalers and / operators, or, you know, will occur?
Let's say
it's difficult. I know the question is not
yeah.
easy. I know.
No, because the partnership, I think, is there. There are many, multiple, various, for several years, examples, slightly different flavors, whatever. And you have the Atlantic cables, the Dunant and the Marea, where any way this, let me say, partnership or co-ownership and complementarity, because at the end, OTTs don't like to hold license. You need a license tool and a cable. Very basic ingredients, okay? So you may have a lot of money, you may have peta of transport traffic, of transmission traffic needs internal. But for example, you tend to partner with someone who can help landing your cable, providing some facilities and capabilities. So the complementarity is there, okay? There could be different rules. I believe, for example, in our case, it was a different approach. It's not because they wanted to land in Italy that we build BlueRaman. I would say the other way around. But anyway, the partnership is there. And again, the complementarity can be there. And I can give some specific examples, otherwise it sounds a bit philosophical. But for example, we will be, within Blue and Raman, the network operation center. So Sparkle will manage, operate, maintain the system for 25 years. This is for us a business, right?
You also have the expertise.
We have the expertise, but I mean, for example, an OTT would delegate someone else to do that. So this is very complementary. So you have a number of this stuff. That's why that model works out. Of course, again, on that route, we don't sell to Google capacity because they have their own fiber. But, you know, you have to cope with that. And I think a number of players have learned that this is the case. They have the need, they have the expertise, they have been a driving force also on the technological point of view to increase the number of fibers. They're still, Google just announced with NEC a multi-core, two-core cable system, which is the next edge of the evolution on the pure technological transmission point of view. So of course they have the scale, the money, the skills, because they hired a lot of very skilled people of the industry. And so this somehow is beneficial overall for the industry. And as network operators or as cable operators, we are learning how to cope with that, finding our space in that galaxy, which can be there. Maybe not for everybody, but for many.
Okay. Franco, you want to talk about the impact as well, maybe?
As we said, I mean, a submarine project like the BlueRaman is a very wide environment that involves geopolitics, as we said before, that involves the carrier, that involves the fiber supplier. The technology evolved a lot, as Valentino said, in the past 10 years, I would say, in terms of how the technology is driving the growth, the different way to build submarine cables in order to deliver that kind of openness and flexibility and capacity that the market demand. Us as Infinera, as with our competitors, as technological supplier, we need to evolve a lot of our technology, but in order to deliver the kind of capacity and the capability to deliver over long distance that this market demand. But we are all part of the same ecosystem where you are partnering and competing in many different ways. And as Valentino said, at the end of the day, potentially there is a competition between the OTT. At the moment, I think it's the data is coming from market research. I think that more than 70% of the overall capacity is on the submarine global cables is managed or let's say delivered from the OTTs. But they need the capability, they need the skill, they need the operational capabilities that a carrier like Telecom or a wholesaler like Telecom Italia Sparkle is in order to manage this kind of capacity, because they do different, they have a different kind of approach. So we see a growing demand. Most of the demand today is a growing number of cable, and most of this demand is coming out of the OTTs, and we see in every part of the world. In Africa at the moment, Africa is becoming especially because Africa is still very, let's say, behind, let's say, the other regions. So there is a growing interest into Africa, and this is mostly led by the demand coming from the OTTs. But the OTTs alone are not able to do it. So it's important.
No, they can't.
They can.
No, they can't. Maurizio, you want to add something to it?
Yes, I think that all of us have to be flexible. These markets change in time a lot. What was true 5 years ago, it is no more true today. And again, for example, the presentation of Valentino, this was a big example. We have to adapt ourselves of the changing of the market. We as Exchange Point, I think we have to provide inside the system the competence that we have in openness and neutrality, and that I think is one of the key points of the future internet. It seems that I think that luckily, especially in the Western countries, we are in a very open market. And I think that in the future, even the big guys might have a different role, because otherwise this open up market will be not so open anymore. And so we have to look at the system and we have to adapt ourselves. It is something that I think we can do it. We can provide this kind of competence.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that then next to the opportunities, there also will remain some challenges to see what might happen in the future or could happen in the future.
Right. Previously the market was really stable, no? Because for years,
it was easy, no? Sort of.
Lots of monopolies, lots of stable market, and so on. Now everything is changing in very few years. So I think we have to, ride the wave, because otherwise we'll remain behind. But this means also opportunity.
Okay.
Because competence, as the guys say, is very important. All the competence of carriers as Sparkle or all competence as a product of Infinera is fundamental in this system.
All right. Ahmed, I want to go to you, and I want to go to the next generation planning in this in our digital era, and then to make sure that we can meet the future demand. How can we fix it? I mean, how big an impact does the demand has, and do you think that we can meet those demands?
So I think that the demands are not going anywhere other than up. The demand will continue to increase, right? Even when we have new technologies, it all requires more capacity. How can we meet those demands? That's $1 million question. I think there's a lot of things that the entire industry is doing right. For example, providers like Infinera updating their technology and coming up with these amazing R&D solutions that all of a sudden can double your capacity. So that's definitely one part of it. The other part is opening the market and being a little bit more flexible. So the more flexible we are and the more agile we are as operators, it's going to lead us into more options. For example, 10-15 years ago, no one would have imagined that OTTs or non-telecom operators would be co-investing and so heavily in submarine cable, right? So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and I'm sure there's a lot of different things that the entire industry can do. But for the most part, we are on the right path. I think some regions have a lot more catch up to do, especially the Middle East and Africa, as rightfully was stated. But we're getting there. It's a slow process. Submarine is something very time consuming and very expensive, but we are getting there slowly but surely.
Thank you. Franco?
I just would like to make a couple of examples. I think that when Sparkle deployed the first cable, I think was Med1, called Med1 back in more or less 25 years ago. connecting Israel to Sicily, this was designed with 10 gigabit technology. So that means that the waves were 10 gigabit. Now on the Sparkle cable, we can carry Infinera, and also probably our competitors, 800 gigabit waves on the same cable. And we can carry this kind of capacity also on the cable that were deployed 25 years ago. So there is the fact that I'm confident we are going to be able to meet this kind of demand is not only because there are many more cables which are being laid down or planned to do, but because the technology itself enable cables that were designed 20 years ago to be updated, to provide the same kind of capabilities. Obviously, once there were 3 cables, 4 cables in a submarine, 3 fibers or 4 fibers in a submarine cable. Now there are, with the new SDM, there are many more. But on the same fiber, we can carry the same capacity, thanks to the evolution of the technology. That was unbelievable when the cable was designed. And we are also extending. There are some of the cables that were laid down in Mediterranean and around the globe 20 years ago. Usually the design life of this kind of solution was 25 years. And after 25 years, we are still carrying capacity and we are increasing the capacity over these cables. So we went through as a, let's say, industry, not industry means for OTT, with OTTs, with everybody, all of the players of this kind of market. We have been able also during the pandemic that creates a burst of traffic, totally unexpected. Did anybody had problem with the connection? No. At the end of the day, the industry was able to react very promptly and to deliver what the increased demand that was totally unexpected, driven by something that was totally outside of our industry. But we were able to also, I'm absolutely confident that we are going to be able to grow this kind of capacity, the capacity demand that is estimated to be in the range of 40 to 50% every single year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Seppi, you want to comment on that one? On the planning, how can we?
No, I can confirm, of course. Med 1 we dismantled, but on Med Nautilus, which is still alive and kicking, I would say, connecting Israel, Cyprus, Greece, Turkey, and Sicily again. We have upgraded some of the fibers with new technologies, which is pushing really, state-of-the-art throughput capability. So again, technology is supporting what the market is demanding. It's up to the single operators how to put the ingredients together. And again, the only positive element that we are all sure in the industry is the demand of connectivity. So the demand of bandwidth, which has been increasing every year with a very stable rate, varying from year to year, but the trend is clear. And overall, the technology doesn't at the moment foresee any major paradigm shift that would change that need. Okay, even CDNs have not changed that. No, if you go back 20 years ago, it seems you put the cache, then the pipe is empty. No, internet would not work without CDNs, because then instead of petabit on a single cable, you would need whatever, exabit or whatever. So I think technology is following very well what the market is demanding.
No, because it's funny, and I mean, when I started talking about submarine cables, which was almost 30 years ago, I know, that's a long time ago, but we were talking about end of life. And I don't hear anymore the end of life of a cable system, and that is due to technology, and to make sure. I mean, we became more clever, more agile, more efficient, and our planning has become far better. And of course, some new players came to it, which pushed us as well. I mean, let's be honest, which is a good thing. So no, sounds really good.
End of life is still there, Eric.
No, I mean physically, of course. Operating
a submarine cable system is a very expensive exercise. So again, case by case, but I can do a very I would say, relevant case, CME-3, the largest single submarine cable system in operations today. We have decided we are part of the consortium. The consortium has, I don't remember, 50,
not talking about
60.
the top 14, eh?
Yeah,
Go
that's
back.
gone already. But we decided last year to decommission that, I think, next year. So end of life is there. That is a cable which is starting from Korea, ending, you know, traveling throughout Asia, Middle East, Red Sea, Mediterranean, going Gibraltar, ending in Germany. So today's single largest cable system will be decommissioned in 1 year because the operational cost of the system cannot justify the level of capability in terms of capacity that the system can run even using new technology. So,
sure, there are all, as we mentioned, it's a case by case thing. But again, in the old days, I mean, for 30, 20 years ago, we said, okay, this is our technology and it will last another 15, 20 years and then it's end of life. And the beauty about the technology is it supports us to, not in every case, and of course, case by case, but more and more to keep the cables alive, keep them running. And if it's still profitable, why not? I mean, it's a pipe. It can work. So, talking about the future, Franco, what should we look out for? What is anything to expect? It's any scoops? You know, I like
no,
those.
I don't have. I cannot spoiler. Let's say we saw. I mean, we went through in the past 5 years. Let's say, let me say in the past 10 years. We started to see in the market the first 100 gigabit connection in around 2011, and we saw technology-wise really an unbelievable evolution. The new generation of product in the past of technology, I'm talking about optics, were in the range of 6-7 years to evolve a solution. Now the new technologies evolved into 3-4 years. So this is the time in which the technology evolved to provide, let's say, a next generation is shortening. This is valid for us. This is valid on the technology which is behind the submarine cables. So I don't see any reason why this could not continue to happen. As I was said, as we all recognize, there is the big driver on the data market, on the growth of the requirement is coming from the OTTs, and I expect this is even to continue to grow more or less at the same speed that it happened in the past years. It's not easy to predict what is going to happen, but for sure, I'm confident that all the ecosystem will be able to evolve in order to deliver what the market requires. I don't see a potential risk that we arrive to a kind of a bottleneck like we had, for example, in the Suez Canal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ahmed, what is your prediction? What's your glass ball? How does the future look like? What can we expect?
A lot of the same. We expect an increase in demand. We expect people to try and continuously innovate, right? Because like everyone mentioned, the real investment is in the cable. That's a huge chunk of it, yes. However, if you can simply upgrade the technology and suddenly get double the capacity, that's huge. So I think there's a huge place for innovation, and again, I'll go back to the whole flexibility again. Who knows what will happen? If I knew, if I had that glass ball, I probably wouldn't be sitting here or sharing it with you. But but there's going to be a lot of innovation to meet the demand. The demand is growing. Everyone sees that. There's no denying it whatsoever. So whoever can find that newest, quickest solution will have all the spoils.
Okay, thank you, Maurizio.
So I think future means, I think the contents are the kings of all the systems, but distribution, I think, are the queens. And the two things have to go together. So I expect to have a new system to distribute contents between continents. At the same time, I think that I'm expecting that there will be a more capillary distribution system, even in terms of interconnection. I speak for the exchange point. I think that, for example, we opened sort of an XP Edge, and not a couple of cities in Italy, in Bari and Naples, that I think integrate all the system, because the contents have to be closer and closer to the end user. I think the big guys are thinking to distribute the contents on CD based. So it means the more and more capillary. So that also means the diversification, that I think is another thing that were important for the future. So Italy in this will be, can play an important role in the Mediterranean area.
Okay. Famous last words.
Well, let me say, I'm optimistic. We are in Rome, so let's look the future from this perspective. And I think I touched some of that in my presentation. I think we are in a geography which is on the spot, on the positive way. Investments are coming, are growing. There is a very high level political attention, both at national as well as European and I would say planetary level. These infrastructures are recognized as critical. There are some security-related concerns, which I think somehow help to raise the attention around this infrastructure. I was yesterday, unfortunately for me, all day long in a BEREC online seminar yesterday. They picked up from a number of players talking about submarine cables. So BEREC, they're figuring out even that submarine cable exists. But this means that there is very high level attention at all political level. Why? Because Europe is pushing big money on the global gateway, which should push the connectivity of Europe, and digital is of course one of the key pillars. And so the attention on this infrastructure is growing. As I said, security would mean also being able to address let me say, the state or the administrative bodies who, for example, needs to be engaged for the deployment or the maintenance of the cable. And this has been one of the requests that some of us has addressed yesterday. We need a sort of fast track, okay? When we deal with fishermen association and so on, you have to give a certain priority to stuff, right? So I think all these, including also the attention for the security on potential threat of this infrastructure, is helping rising the profile. And rising the profile will help us develop this infrastructure and create, from the Italian standpoint, more and more Italy as an industrial, let me say, element, which works at global level to groom the traffic, develop the traffic with a mix of assets, submarine, terrestrial, data center, interconnection capabilities, internet exchanges, cloud engines, and so on.
Okay. Did you get that? Fantastic. So thank you so much. And we would like to, we need to close the session. And we didn't go into the terrestrial and non-terrestrial part, but by the end of the day, still 97% of our traffic goes over the submarine cables, right? Roughly. 99,
telegeography stated very, at Bangkok, at the suboptic, 99 is the number. So now 99. We have to use 99. International, yes. Of course.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
But what is national? What is international? And in Italy, we can spend another hour here.
Yeah. Minimum.
Right?
Minimum. Thank you so much for your contribution. I would like to thank you, audience, for staying with us. Thank you for your questions. That was really interesting. And Nevin, you can never stop. You have another question? You know how I am. 1 minute. Only if it's easy, of course. No, of course.
It's a question for Franco. Actually, if it's possible, can you tell us what is the percentage of revenue that Infinera is getting from, in terms of submarine cable equipment from the hyperscalers and from the rest of the telecom industry?
Wasn't it easy? Well, honestly, I mean, Infinera do not provide this kind of differentiation in terms of revenue. I mean, we provide simply, let's say, differentiation between the kind of region. I have to say that I don't have this kind of element and probably not allowed to disclose it. However, I can say that the number of players, I mean, the subsea cable requires top-end technology, and there are not that many top-end technology provider that can address this kind of market. So on our side, there is less competition in the sub-4. Infinera is one of the players. We have this kind of technology, and for us, it's a very important market, not only because we have a kind of leadership position, but also because there are less competitors compared to the terrestrial backbone and the metro network, where there are much more different competitors. So I would say that, let's say, there are 2-3 vendors that are the top leaders. 2 of them are clearly, let's say, on the top of the ranking. And I think that, let's say, we are one of the 2. So it's not easy to identify, to break down the revenues on the terrestrial and the subsea, because the subsea is growing a lot, but still there are still the largest part of the investment in optical technology is on the terrestrial network, just because of the size of from the metro, from the access. I can simply say that I think that we are, let's say, in a range of 40 to 50% of the global market for what is concerned the subsea, but I'm not able to evaluate how much is weight into our global revenues.
That was more than a minute, Nevin. And it was absolutely not easy. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your answer. So I would like to end the session. I would really like to thank, of course, the sponsor of the session, which is, of course, Sparkle. Thank you for that. Thank you for your keynote, Giuseppe. It was fantastic. I would thank my fellow panelists. And Ahmed, thank you so much. Hope to see you soon, my friend. We know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be in the region, trust me. Absolutely. And but don't cry, because we have still one other session coming up in around 20-25 minutes. Depends on how long it takes before we get our coffee. But we will be there, and we'll be back with Diego. We will be back with Nevin and some others. So please join us in let's say roughly half an hour. Thank you so much.